us with these tariffs.
Target's an interesting company to follow here. They've stepped on a couple of inventory landmines. There was a pull forward, then they had too much. Do you think they've been scarred by that? Going into this episode, could we see the repeat of a mistake, but maybe the reverse of the mistake? Not having enough.
definitely seeing that slowing. You're seeing some brands continue to remain strong there, and by that I mean Ralph Lauren in China has been solid.
Dana, appreciate it. It's good to see you.
Thank you.
Always,
good to see
thanks
you.
for the update. Appreciate
Thank
it. Really do. Dana Townsend there of the Townsend Advisory Group. Just want to give you a sneak peek of the week ahead because later on this morning we get some economic data. ISM Services comes at 10 a.m. Eastern Time before the Federal Reserve meeting on Wednesday and that Chairman Powell news conference. Look out for the testimony from the Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent. Secretary Bessent has talked about retailers having sufficient inventory to get through this over the next several months. I think questions about that, trade volumes and inventories are going to be critical stories to follow over the next few months.
All right, because Gene Soroka was telling us that really it's 5 to 7 weeks. This is a week-by-week basis when it comes to inventories for some companies. Others have planned out for this a little bit better. Also, I'm interested in looking at the data because depending on whether it's good or bad, how is this administration going to talk about it? Is it going to be Biden data or is it going to be Trump data? Friday with the jobs report, they were very excited about. That seemed to be Trump data, even though we lost about 1,000 jobs in the manufacturing sector. It's what makes all of this so complicated Wednesday for Jay Powell.
The cheat guide, if it's bad, if it's good, I think it's obvious whether it's Trump or Biden data based on the White House's perspective. The importance of retailers, though, Home Depot, Target, Walmart, putting pressure on this White House just a few Mondays ago, going into the IMF World Bank spring meetings, and maybe just shaping a different approach towards China in the coming weeks for trade negotiations. Up next on this program, we'll catch up with Erin McLaughlin of the Conference Board, Deborah Cunningham of Federated Hermes, as we count you down to a Federal Reserve decision this coming Wednesday. As we count you down to the opening bell, 1 hour and about 5 minutes away, equity futures here, negative by 0.8% on the S&P. From New York, this is Bloomberg.
Note that restraints don't just mean ropes. They're also about handcuffs, silk scarves, or any kind of tying implement. It's best to purchase materials specially made for BDSM purposes to prevent abrasions on the skin of the sub. Ideally, the restraints should be loose enough so that they still allow blood flow through the body. A sub should always be on the lookout for tingly or numbing feelings along the limbs that are restrained. It is the role of the dom to check in once in a while and make sure that there is no blood restriction occurring during the bondage. Collaring. Included in the area of restraints is the use of collars, which isn't always advertised in BDSM. The truth is that collars can inhibit breathing, which can lead to death. As much as possible, collars are discouraged in BDSM. However, if this is really your thing, then we strongly suggest the 2-finger rule. This means that the collar has to be loose enough that you can insert 2 fingers in between the skin and the collar without any problem. Anything tighter than that is dangerous. Aftercare. During aftercare, the Dom manages to become more caring as a natural way of deviating from the dominant mental status he goes into during the scene. The sub, on the other hand, experiences an emotional uplifting afterwards to help level the physical and mental pressure they went through. Here are some examples of how aftercare works. Taking a bath or shower together with the Dom administering to the sub in different ways, like massaging shampoo or soap. Taking care of any cuts and bruises that the sub got through application of creams, band-aids, ice packs, and gels. Massaging any of the sore muscles. Food and water to rehydrate the body. Talking about what happened and allowing the sub to talk about the scene, in some cases involving cries, anger, or any method of self-expression. In some cases, the talk can be about what you liked during the scene and what you didn't like. Cuddling with each other. Having sex at a gentler and more leisurely pace with your partner. Talking about your feelings with each other and how much you love her. Brushing her hair or applying lotion all over her body. Of course, those are just examples of aftercare. As a Dom, you should be mindful of the kind of aftercare your sub needs. The more stringent the scene played, the more extensive the aftercare should be. Remember that you're essentially the owner of your sub, and although you can do what you want with her during a scene, you are also bound to take care of her afterwards. Chapter 5. Outside the dungeon. Getting started. Now that you have a pretty good idea of how the Dom role works, the next step is to find the BDSM community that will help you expand your knowledge on the subject and indulge your kinky desires. Now, there are several ways to get started on this. Finding a partner. If you're lucky enough to have a partner who is also into BDSM, then there should be no need to seek out the BDSM community in your area. You and your partner may enjoy the relationship without question, allowing yourselves to play any scene you wish when it comes to BDSM. Some Doms like to post advertisements through websites like Craigslist, or perhaps internet communities specially set up for the BDSM scene. Although this is certainly a possibility, do not keep your hopes up that a sub will respond, especially if the setup is in your house. This is because, as already mentioned, the Dom-sub relationship is anchored on trust. In a BDSM scene, the sub is highly vulnerable, so there's very little chance that she will play with someone she only met through the internet. BDSM dungeons. The best way, therefore, to find a sub and to exercise your BDSM predilections is through dungeons. Typically, dungeons are paid-for facilities where you can hire either a Dom or a sub to play a scene with you. There are several advantages here, including the fact that you'll be meeting with people who are in the same mindset as you. Additionally, dungeons are staffed by individuals who have a pretty good grip on the BDSM lifestyle and can provide you with the exact experience you want. In many cases, dungeons will guide you through the process, talk about how it works, and what can be expected. The best thing about dungeons, however, is that it helps you build a reputation. Once the community manages to see how well you take the role of a Dom, you'll be more welcomed into the lifestyle, and subs will be more willing to play with you under different scenes. In some instances, you may find a sub to play with outside the dungeon. Munch. Playing in dungeons or searching the internet can get you invited for your very first munch. As already defined, a munch is a gathering where BDSM enthusiasts meet in a public place for socialization purposes. This is a great way to be introduced to the society, allowing you to interact with people who follow the same lifestyle. Take advantage of your first munch and ask different questions about BDSM and how you can proceed further into the lifestyle. Dungeon versus personal play. The main difference between the two is that dungeon plays are often highly regulated. This means that actual sex or facsimiles thereof are often not allowed. Hence, penetration by the penis or any object in the vagina or anus is often disallowed. Instead, the pain and discomfort themselves are the replacement for the erotic component of the sex. Of course, this is not a general rule. Depending on your dungeon, the sex may or may not be allowed. Note, though, that generally speaking, sex combined with BDSM in an official dungeon would be termed prostitution and therefore illegal. Personal plays, however, typically have the element of sex into them. The sub and dom may play with the intent of achieving orgasm at some point. Since there's usually a personal relationship during such plays, there is no problem as to the legal aspect of the whole thing. National Kink Coming Out Day. If you feel like you're ready to show the world how kinky you are, then you can also participate in the National Kink Coming Out Day. This is a special event wherein individuals who happen to love BDSM and revel in the lifestyle come out and socialize with like-minded individuals. You might want to check out this particular event and find out how you can get started as a member of the BDSM community. BDSM etiquette. Do not use the toys of other doms for their subs. In fact, etiquette requires that you should not touch the toys of other doms unless specifically allowed. The same holds true for your toys. Also note that having your own toys, whether you play in a dungeon or not, is important, especially if you play with only one sub. This is for the interest of safety and health security, as bodily fluids can often come up during a scene. Washing your toys should be done after every scene. Chapter 6. More BDSM techniques for the bolder dom. Being the dominant requires that you know a lot of techniques. Otherwise, the submissive will not writhe in fear, pain, and pleasure altogether. These elements are important in BDSM, especially if you want to play the really aggressive dom. Here are more techniques to help make your play more exciting and heart-pounding. Number 1. Using sex toys. You could insert connected beads to your vagina or anus and then have them pulled out. Use dildos, a non-vibrating phallus, to add stimulation. You could use love eggs, otherwise known as oriental eggs. These are 2 balls connected that you place inside the body. It is powered by battery. Play with suction toys on your breasts, nipples, or genitals. As a dom, use a vibrator on your sub for internal and external stimulation. Number 2, through bondage. Bondage light. You could lightly bind the body to make the sub feel he or she is really a slave. Bondage heavy, where the sub is not allowed any movement. Place your sub in a box or a closet. Bind his or her breasts. Put your sub in a cage and play pretend that he or she be freed, if he or she does as you say. Affix your sub on a post as if you're crucifying the sub. Bind the sub's whole body. Bind the sub's genitals. Hypnotize your sub and make him or her submit freely to you. Wrap your sub in leather, cotton, or whatever tickles your fantasy. Restrain your sub outdoors or privately. Show other people that you are restraining your sub. The restraint could take an hour or more, even overnight. You could even restrain your sub for days, unless the sub uses a safe word. Suspend your sub above the ground, whether vertically or horizontally. The sub can also be suspended upside down. Number 3, using bondage toys. Blindfolds are effective in heightening other senses in a sub other than sight. Place the sub in a body bag or restrict his or her movement with duct tape. Make the sub wear hoods to allow a small part of the fabric for breathing or singing. Gag your partner with a ball, cloth, a bit, a dildo, or any inflatable device. Duct tapes can also be used to gag the sub. Use a harness for your sub. Choose from leather or rope. Deprive your sub of hearing by making him or her wear earplugs. Use metal bondage equipment, such as manacles. Cover you or your sub's face with a mask. It adds excitement. Use bondage that can be freed by a key. Bind the sub's ankles and arms. Use handcuffs as restraint. In place of leather and rope, use silk scarves to restrict the sub's body. Place the sub in a sleep sack to immobilize him or her. Put the sub in a swing or a sling. Restrict the sub's movement by connecting his or her legs to a spreader bar. Straitjackets are also quite popular nowadays. Number 4, through sadomasochism. Scrape or scratch the skin of your partner. You could use your nails or any abrasive material. Stretch the sub's anus open. This is called anal dilation. You could also place your hand inside the sub's anus. Asphyxiate the sub by covering his or her face with a cloth or thin plastic. Torture the sub's soles. Bastinado. Beat your partner lightly or heavily. Use your arms or a paddle. You could beat any part of the body for that matter. For example, the back, the butt, chest, breast, feet, genitals, or the face. The severity of beating depends on the slave contract. However, make sure that you inflict the right pain. The logic of BDSM is to give pain as much as pleasure. Bite your partner. Nibble on the skin until there are red marks. This is also a method of branding, though the marks will not be permanent. Stretch or milk the breast. You could also do breast torture or breast whipping. Choke your partner, but not to the extent that he or she loses oxygen entirely. Use electricity to create pain or sensation. Slap the submissive's face. This is better done when the sub is feeling so much pleasure already. Use fire and heat to increase sexual sensations. Pull the hair of your sub, pinch the skin, or punch a body part. Give your partner a scar that he or she will always remember you by. The more personal the scar, the better it is. Scratch the skin of your partner, especially when both of you are enjoying the sexual act. Spank the sub. Whether the sub is on hands and knees, spanking can be hard or soft. Deliberately stretch the vagina of your submissive, or do vaginal fisting. Place your hand inside of her. If the sub is female, make her wear a bodice or a corset and tighten it. When in the act, her breasts will bulge and there will be pain. Say that you'll release the hold on the bodice if the sub is willing to be a good girl. There are other methods, but these are already within vanilla sex and may not be considered BDSM techniques. A word of caution. Always make sure that your partner consents to the act. You don't want to be labeled as unsafe. BDSM is all about entertainment. Whether you want to inflict pain or not, the bottom line is that both you and your partner should benefit from the sexual activity. After all, BDSM is meant for play, not for abuse. Whatever happens in the dungeon should stimulate you and your sub. A real dom is in control of the play, while beginners simply experiment without any thought of aftercare. BDSM is also not just about physical play. There's also mental play here. The most important thing as the dom is that you and your sub know who's in charge in the dungeon. The switch is good for both sexes, and there would be no struggle for power. Conclusion. Other than the rules when it comes to safety, there are no defined limits as to the practice of BDSM. The only requirements are that they are sane, safe, and consensual, as originally talked about in the previous chapter. As a dom, here's what you should keep in mind before, during, and after a play. Always ask the sub what they're willing and not willing to do. Always ask for consent. Always exercise self-control. Always practice aftercare. BDSM is a unique community filled with people from all sides of the community. You might be surprised, but the truth is that some members come from the higher ranks of society who simply have very different preferences in their lifestyle. As long as it does not cause harm to anyone else, BDSM is a perfectly acceptable way of life. The next step is to apply these tips and strategies to bring your sex life and your relationship to exhilarating heights. Lastly, remember that sex is meant to be an extraordinary experience, so don't be afraid of exploring activities and sensations that are beyond the ordinary. Each of us has our own fetishes and fantasies. Are you brave enough to live out yours?
This has been BDSM for Beginners, a how-to training guide for the dominant role. Written by Melissa Beach and More Sex, More Fun Book Club. Narrated by Nicole Renee. Copyright 2024 by Melissa Beach and More Sex, More Fun Book Club. Production copyright by More Sex, More Fun Book Club. BDSM for Beginners, a how-to training guide for the submissive role. Written by Melissa Beach and More Sex, More Fun Book Club. Narrated by Nicole Renee.
The Secret Guide to Being the Submissive. Introduction. This book contains proven information on how to clearly define the parameters and traits of the submissive, how to identify true submissive traits within yourself, and what roles a submissive can take on within the BDSM and dominant submissive paradigms. In this book, you will find advice and reference points in finding out what a submissive is, and whether or not you happen to be one. You will be given a taste on how to take up your role in the BDSM roleplay scene, and how to be a good submissive to the dominant. You will also find references regarding any toys and tools that can be used in your play to heighten satisfaction. Lastly, you will find advice on how to handle certain problems in the dominant-submissive relationship that will give you an edge in handling the common pitfalls faced by those who engage in the BDSM and DS lifestyles. Chapter 1. What does it mean to be a submissive? BDSM, which is an acronym for Bondage and Discipline, Dominance and Submission, DS or D/S, Sadism and Masochism, SM, has become much more popular recently with the success of books like 50 Shades of Grey, which has women dreaming of a dominant male figure to take control of them. Being a submissive or a dominant, however, doesn't have a certain type. Male or female, whatever the sexual orientation, can be the submissive or the dominant in BDSM roleplays. Although scientific studies have confirmed that women are more inclined to be submissives and men are more inclined to be dominants, there are many exceptions to this. Understand that not all BDSM plays end up in sex. Some don't even involve touching each other. It's all about reaching orgasmic pleasures through taking control and surrendering. It depends on the role. Most people in the BDSM scene do end up having intercourse, but it's definitely not required. Everything depends on your agreement with your partner or playmate on what you think is acceptable and interesting. Most of all, it's about consent. Although this entire book centers on the role of the submissive, some light is shed on the other role, that of the dominant, for clarification purposes only. The roles. The dominant, or the top, is often the one who takes control of the play. They are the one who sets up the play and does things, and orders the submissive around. The dominant should be someone you trust, and someone who can take control of the situation. The person taking on the role must be sure of themselves, and also knowledgeable on what is acceptable to the submissive. Now to the meat of the matter, the submissive. The submissive is often seen as the one who aims to please their dominant, the one who likes being ordered around and do what they're told. There are people who naturally take to being submissive partners, or have submissive traits that they carry around with them through everyday life. The willingness of the submissive to do as they are told stems from an innate desire to please and serve another, typically someone they value or look up to.
Hello, Mother.
God bless you, my son. Where are you?
Home.
Okay, can you come now?
Okay.
Okay. Bye.
They are what are called true submissives within the BDSM community. This means their submissive behavior is hardwired into their brains. That's just how they are. To the true submissive, being the servant, to the true submissive, being the servant, slave, or pet is not a role they play. It is who they are, and there are no other roles. There are also those in the community called switches. Switches are people who can switch between being dominant and being submissive.